I worked as a medical examiner for over a decade. It was a good job. I was good at it. Each new body was like a puzzle waiting to be solved. But then a case changed everything about a year ago. I remember it clearly. The room was cold and sterile, the lights buzzing softly overhead. I could smell antiseptic all around me. When I turned the middle-aged man's body over, he looked perfectly healthy. Death had taken him without warning. My heart raced as I began the autopsy. But soon that thrill faded. I found something lodged inside him. It was small and metallic, unlike anything I had ever seen. My mind raced with questions. What was it? Why was it inside him? The thrill I felt turned to dread. Bruising covered his body like a strange art piece. I wanted to connect the dots, but I wasn't sure where to start. After I finished the autopsy, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I spent nights reading, searching for answers. I found other cases, 5 in total, with the same strange object hidden inside the victims. They all had bruising and weird skin patterns, and none of them had close family or friends. It made no sense. The isolation pressed down on me, heavy and stifling. Death after death came through my office. Each one mirrored the last. I felt like I was running a race, but I didn't know who or what I was racing against. I thought of asking for help, but who would believe me? I started to lose sleep. My co-workers noticed how much I was struggling. They were concerned. One night, during a long shift, I entered the storage room. I was searching for answers. As soon as I stepped inside, I felt something different. The silence was thick. I scanned the tables and froze. "Tom, is that you?" A voice whispered. It was a cold, chilling sound. My heart pounded. I turned slowly but saw no one. Just bodies with hollow eyes staring at me. It felt wrong. I looked back at the bodies. It felt as if they were watching me, as if they wanted me to discover something hidden. My mind raced. Someone once hinted that the devices might not just be objects. They hinted they could be weapons or tools for something dark. I didn't know what that meant, but it scared me. I wanted to know. The weight of those bodies felt heavy on my chest. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed off the walls. I whipped around, terrified. My heart raced even faster. I had never been this afraid in my entire life. What was happening? I had to know. But at what cost? The air grew colder, and I felt an icy breath brush against the back of my neck. The silence became deafening. The bodies felt so close now. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I stood frozen. Would I regret not diving deeper into this case? Or would I find forces that should have stayed hidden? I took a breath, trying to summon the courage to move. The clang echoed again, sharp and urgent. I finally forced myself to turn toward the door. Then I froze once more. An image flickered in my mind. The last body I had autopsied, the one with the metallic object. I could almost see it shining in the pale light of the morgue. What if this wasn't just a coincidence? What if I had stumbled upon something much larger? My head swirled with possibilities. I needed to go back to my office, to dig deeper into the files I had assembled on those 5 cases. With trembling hands, I stumbled out of the storage room, filled with that heavy silence. Each step felt too loud. Each shadow seemed to stretch, watching me as I went. I shut the door behind me, wanting to lock everything out, but I couldn't shake the feeling that my instincts were right, that something was off. Once back in my office, I gathered the files. I flipped through them like a madman. Each victim's history was nearly identical, disconnected lives, no one to ask questions when they disappeared. I chuckled bitterly. It was as if they were lost in a world that didn't need them. I unearthed old photographs of the bodies, noting the bruising patterns again. This time, something caught my eye. Then everything went dark. The lights flickered violently, plunging me into shadows. My heart raced as the power failed completely. I instinctively reached for my phone, but it was dead. I cursed under my breath, fighting the panic rising in my throat. The only light now flickered through the small window, dim, comforting moonlight, but not enough to dispel the shrouded corners of the room. That's when I heard a noise. A soft shuffling. My breath caught. Someone was here. I was certain of it. I glanced out the window, hoping to catch a glimpse of anything beyond the glass. But the world outside seemed as dark as what was creeping into my office. I had a desk drawer containing a small flashlight. I opened it, hands shaking. The flashlight flickered and dimly lit the room. But just as I turned it on, I heard it again. A footstep. Closer this time. "Who is there?" I called, voice trembling. Silence answered. Then I felt the chill again, as if someone was leaning in, watching me. The sweat beaded on my forehead. Suddenly, the door rattled violently. I jumped, and the flashlight slipped from my fingers, rolling across the floor and casting frantic shadows. I had two choices: hide or confront whatever was on the other side of that door. I took a step back, my heart screaming at me to run. But then, that metallic sound echoed in my mind, the object I was chasing. I had to know the truth. I took a deep breath and steeled myself. I couldn't back down now. This wasn't just about me anymore. I approached the door, hand trembling on the knob. For every instinct telling me to turn back, there was something else pushing me forward. The unknown awaited me on the other side. What would I find? I had to open it to find out. I turned the knob slowly, trying to make as little noise as possible. It felt like hours had passed in those few seconds. The metal was cold against my palm. With a soft creak, the door swung open. The hallway stretched out before me, dark and empty. I peered down its length, my pulse quickening. Nothing moved, but the silence felt heavy. I took a tentative step forward, flashlight beam cutting through shadows. The air was stale, thick with an uneasy tension. Suddenly, a loud thump echoed from the end of the hallway. I jumped, heart racing. I snapped my head in the direction of the sound, half expecting to see a figure emerging from the dark. But no one came. Just an empty void. I took another step, still scanning the hallway. My senses were on high alert. I felt like prey being hunted, the instincts clawing at me to flee. But I couldn't run. I had to know what was happening. I moved down the hall, each footfall echoing louder than the last. My flashlight flickered ominously, and for a moment, I thought it would fail completely. I cursed it softly, urging it to hold on as I approached the dimly lit emergency exit. That door could lead me into the chaos beyond, or worse, it could reveal the hidden truth lurking within these walls. As I neared the door, I glimpsed a shadow darting just beyond the crack of light seeping through. I froze, stomach twisting. Who or what was there? Was it one of the victims? Could it be their restless spirits? No, I shook my head. It couldn't be. I was losing my grip on reality. I needed to get a grip. I tightened my hold on the flashlight and stepped closer to the door. The noise of shuffling returned, louder this time, almost impatient. As if whatever was waiting on the other side was desperate for me to come. Just then, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, shattering the tension. I felt a surge of hope as I fished it out, but the screen glowed black, another dead battery. Something in me sank, realizing I was truly alone. That's when I saw a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye. I turned, and there, at the end of the hallway, a figure stood, half obscured in shadow. My breath caught in my throat. "Who are you?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely a whisper. The figure didn't respond, just stayed there, unmoving, with a darkness that seemed to swallow the light around them. I felt the fear clawing at my throat, now mixed with an unsettling curiosity. What could they possibly want from me? And then, just as quickly as they appeared, the figure vanished into the shadowy depths. An icy dread settled over me. What had I just witnessed? My pulse thundered in my ears as I took a step back, glancing around for a way out. Then, I heard it, a low whisper, barely audible, but unmistakably directed at me. Find the metal. A chill raced down my spine. Suddenly the weight of my investigation crashed down on me. The metallic object from my last case, the connection I had been chasing, was far more than a simple anomaly. Before I could process what I had just heard, the lights flickered back to life. The harsh fluorescence hummed above me. I squinted against the sudden brightness, my surroundings feeling more real than they ever had. The hallway was empty again, and the buzzing of electricity filled the air. But I knew I couldn't ignore what I had heard. There was a truth here, one that was begging to be uncovered. I felt the pull of urgency now, strong and relentless. I couldn't wait any longer, I had to find that metal. As I turned to make my way back to the office, doubt crept in. What had I just invited into my life? And what would I find if I continued to dig? I didn't waste another moment. I made my way back down the hallway, my heart pounding with every step. The air felt electric, as if something was about to happen. I reached my office door, pushing it open with urgency. The familiar clutter offered some comfort, but I felt it fade as I reached for the file on my desk. It was a collection of notes from my previous investigations, old photographs, and the report on the metallic object that had haunted my thoughts. I spread them out, searching for patterns, connections, anything that could point me in the right direction. The whispers lingered in my mind, echoing as I pieced together the fragments of an unsettling puzzle. I clicked on my computer. The screen glowed brightly, but the information I found only intensified my unease. Each case I studied led back to that metal object, linked by a thread of mystery and tragedy, unexplained disappearances, unsettling deaths, and now, whatever I had just witnessed. Then I saw it, an old newspaper clipping with a photo of a man I recognized from my last case. He was standing beside a metal structure, the same kind that haunted my dreams. He had disappeared under suspicious circumstances, and now, I had a name. Jason Cruz. I had spent weeks trying to find out what happened to him, only to come back empty-handed. I clicked on the name, hoping for more information. Suddenly, an email alert popped up. The sender? An anonymous account, with a single message: follow the trail. It leads to the heart. I felt my stomach drop. I had already been following a trail, but was this what it meant? Instead of feeling hopeful, dread washed over me. Was I being watched? Was there someone, or something, leading me deeper into this nightmare? I glanced at the clock. Time was slipping away. I made my decision. I retraced my steps to the hallway, determined to follow the lead I had stumbled onto. I switched off my office lights, leaving the comfort of familiarity behind. The air felt heavier as I opened the door again. I moved down the hall, noting each creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. My flashlight cut through the darkness, but it felt like the shadows were closing in, eager to swallow me whole. As I neared the emergency exit again, I spotted something on the floor. A metallic glint that caught my eye. I bent down, my heart racing. It was a small piece of metal, sharp and jagged. The moment I picked it up, a blaring siren echoed through the building, slicing through the silence like a knife. I jumped, cursing under my breath. This wasn't good. I needed to act fast. I shoved the metal into my pocket and hurried towards the exit, adrenaline coursing through me. Maybe this piece was what I was meant to find. But as I reached for the exit door, I paused. A feeling of being watched washed over me again. I couldn't shake the sensation that someone was behind me. I spun around, but the hallway remained empty, only shadows darting along the edges of my flashlight's beam. The siren blared again, now joined by distant echoes of footsteps. Someone was coming. I had to leave. But as I turned back to the door, it swung wide open. A figure stood just outside, silhouetted against the blinding lights behind them. "Going somewhere?" they said, the voice low and menacing. Everything inside me screamed to run, but I was frozen, heart pounding louder than the sirens. Who was this person? What did they want? I could barely make out the figure's features, but the outline was enough to send a chill down my spine. The voice hung in the air, thick with menace. Instinct kicked in, but fear kept my feet rooted to the spot. I tried to catch a glimpse of who was lurking in the dim light, hoping for some flash of recognition, anything that could explain this situation. "Answer me," the figure pressed, taking a step closer. "Are you going to keep running, or are you finally going to uncover the truth?" Truth? What truth? My mind raced through the investigations, the names, the cases tied to the metal object. Jason Cruz weighed heavily on my thoughts. I fought against the urge to bolt. I was not leaving without answers. "Who are you?" I managed to croak out, my voice barely above a whisper. "What do you want from me?" The figure stepped into the light, and for a brief moment, I thought I recognized them. Dark hair, a sharp jawline. "You don't remember me, do you?" They smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "Just an old friend trying to help." "Help?" I scoffed, skepticism edging my voice. "Why would you help me? People like you don't help people like me." "You say that now," they replied, their tone shifting from menacing to something smoother, almost coaxing. "But what if I told you that everything you're searching for is tied to the metal? To Jason? You're close, but you need me to find the rest." I trembled, a mixture of hesitation and curiosity swirling within me. "Why should I trust you?" "Because," they said, leaning closer, their voice dropping to a hushed tone, "if you don't, you might end up like him. Or worse." The words hung heavy in the air. My mind was racing. Jason Cruz wasn't just a name, he was a warning. I needed to keep moving, not stand still like prey. "Get out of my way," I finally said, my resolve hardening. I stepped forward, intent on pushing past them and escaping outside. But they reached out, grabbing my arm with surprising strength. "You can't just walk away from this. The deeper you go, the worse it gets. There's a reason you found that metal piece. You need to complete what was started." I was torn between anger and fear. "You're talking in riddles," I snapped, and my heart raced not just from fear but also from the adrenaline surging through me. "What do you know about it?" "Everything," they replied, their eyes sparkling with a mix of excitement and something darker. "But you can't know without paying the price." I yanked my arm loose, realizing my moment of hesitation had given them too much power. I had no time to waste. I took a deep breath, preparing to push past them. "If you are going to help me, then give me something I can use. Otherwise, I'm done here." Then, just as I was about to flee, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It startled me, and I fumbled to take it out. When I glanced at the screen, the blood drained from my face. It was a message from the anonymous account again. "They are lying. Get out. Now." Before I could react, the sirens blared once more, and the building around us felt alive with chaotic energy. The moment felt weighty, as if decisions made right then could shape my fate. The figure noticed my shock. "You have to listen to me," they shouted, but something had shifted. My instinct screamed at me to run. As I turned toward the exit, a loud crash echoed from inside the hallway behind me. The noise sent adrenaline surging through my veins. I bolted for the door, leaving the figure and their bewildering knowledge behind, and stepped into the frigid night air hungry for answers, but terrified of what might come next. I stumbled out into the night, the cool air biting at my skin. The adrenaline still coursed through me, pushing me forward. I had to think. I needed a plan. I couldn't shake the longing for answers, but part of me screamed to run and never look back. I walked briskly down the street, my phone still buzzing in my hand. I glanced at the screen again, my pulse racing. I wanted to block out the voice in my head, but it was there. Get out. Now. Was it warning me about the figure, or was it something deeper? I couldn't dismiss it. My mind swarmed with possibilities as I headed toward my apartment. Each shadow felt alive, twisting and shifting in the dim light. I reminded myself to focus. If I wanted answers, I'd need to gain control over the situation. The figure's threat lingered like a dark cloud, looming over me. At last, I reached my building. The familiar creak of the door as I entered felt like a small comfort, but it quickly faded. I felt exposed under the flickering lights of the hallway. My heartbeat quickened as I climbed the stairs, half expecting someone to appear behind me. Nobody did, but the worry clung to me. I reached my floor and made my way to my apartment door. But before I could turn the knob, an unsettling sound rattled the silence. It was coming from inside. A low thud and then something, a whisper. My heart dropped. Someone was in my home. I pushed the door open cautiously, anxiety wrapping around me like a vine, choking any rational thought. The room was dark, save for the glow of my laptop, open on the table. Something was off. I scanned the space, searching for a figure hiding in the corners, but saw nothing. That's when I noticed the metal object on the floor, the one I had nearly forgotten in my panic. It was polished, glinting ominously under the faint light. I stepped closer, feeling drawn to it. The message had warned me about it. Had I unknowingly summoned whatever malevolent force it contained? I hesitated, but curiosity gnawed at me. I knelt down and picked it up. My fingers brushed over the surface, and a shock rippled through me. Images flashed in my mind, fragmented memories of Jason, the figure, and a voice begging for help. There was a fold of paper tucked beneath the object. I yanked it free and unfolded it with trembling hands. My breath caught as I read the message, "Find the rest. Time is running out." What was the rest? Was it connected to Jason? Or the figure? Something deep inside me urged me to turn and run again, but I fought it back. I couldn't back down now. Suddenly, a noise came from my bedroom, a sound like shuffling, then silence. I felt the panic rise, my instincts screaming that I wasn't safe. With the metal still clutched in my palm, I made my way toward the bedroom, every step heavy with dread. As I reached the doorway, I hesitated. I needed to know who was in there. My heart raced in rhythm with the unease growing within me. Then, before I could prepare myself, the door creaked open, and I stepped inside to face whatever awaited me. And there it was, another figure, like the one from the alley, shadowed, but unmistakably real. I braced myself as they turned slowly to face me, and the recognition hit like a punch to the gut. A familiar face, but one that shouldn't be here. "You're too late," they whispered. I froze, the voice slicing through my mist of confusion. It was unmistakably Jason. But how? I had seen him just before everything went wrong, and now he was standing here, looking disheveled but very much alive. My mind raced, trying to piece together how he could be in my apartment, let alone why he just uttered that chilling phrase. "What do you mean I'm too late?" I managed to stammer, the metal object still clutched tightly in my hand. I took a cautious step closer, trying to gauge if this was a trick or some warped nightmare. He swallowed hard, eyes darting around the room like a cornered animal before settling on me. "They're coming for you. I tried to warn you," he said, voice low and urgent. "The moment you picked up that thing," he gestured toward the metal object, now feeling more like a curse than ever. "You opened a door." "A door? To what?" I demanded, trying to keep the panic from my voice. I didn't want to sound terrified, but every instinct told me to turn and bolt. Jason ignored my question, stepping closer, his presence filling the room with a desperate energy. "You need to find the rest. If you don't, things will get worse. I didn't get the chance to collect them all, and they'll keep searching." His words twisted in my gut. I could see the fear in his eyes, a shadow of the confident person I once knew. I took another step back, needing distance. I don't understand. What do you mean they? Who are they? I can't explain right now, he pleaded. You have to trust me. Just listen. They're not just hunting you, they're hunting the object. And once they sense it's here, they a loud crash interrupted him. The sound echoed from the living room, causing my heart to leap into my throat. My fear compounded as I turned, uncertain of what awaited me beyond the closed door. Jason noticed my distraction. We don't have much time. You need to decide fight or run. I felt trapped between panic and action, torn between the urge to flee and the need for answers. Fear spurred my decision. What do I need to do? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Follow me, he said, urgency bleeding through his tone. The basement, it's where you need to go. But we have to get out of here first. Before I could respond, the thud came again, this time accompanied by a scraping sound that made my skin crawl. I turned back, heart racing, realizing that whatever was at the door was getting closer. Jason grabbed my wrist, pulling me toward the back of the apartment. I could still feel the weight of the metal object in my other hand, a deadly reminder of the chaos that had already begun to unfold. Now, he urged, urgency spilling from him. As we stepped towards the hallway, I caught one last glimpse of my bedroom. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist into shapes that threatened to envelop me completely. I knew we had to hurry, but an unsettling thought settled in the back of my mind. What exactly were we running from? Just then, I heard a voice from the shadows, the familiar tone echoing eerily, "You're not getting away this time." I bolted into the hallway, Jason's grip firm around my wrist, pulling me further away from the ominous sound. Panic bubbled in my chest, and I barely heard Jason's hurried whispers as he continued to press me forward. Stay close. Don't look back. We rounded the corner into the kitchen, where the door that led outside stood ajar, creaking softly as it swayed. I hesitated just for a moment, torn between escape and the overwhelming desire to understand. What about the basement? I blurted out, trying to catch my breath. It's our best chance, he shot back, eyes wild. But we have to get through the front door first. They'll be here any second. His urgency lent me a fleeting confidence. I glanced back toward the living room, where darkness seemed to creep like smoke across the floor. I could feel something watching, a presence lurking just out of sight. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being hunted. Jason led me toward the front door, and my heart raced as we approached the threshold. It swung open slightly, revealing nothing. The evening air felt cold as it brushed my skin, stirring wisps of tension through the silence. But then came another crash, louder this time, making the walls shake slightly. Go! Jason shouted, and we burst through the door, plunging into the dim light outside. The cool night air was disorienting. I hadn't realized how stifling my apartment had felt until now. We raced down the steps, bound for the shadows of the overgrown yard. I heard Jason mumbling something urgent, but my breath came in ragged gasps. I had never been a runner, but adrenaline fueled me. Just ahead lay the overgrown pathway leading to the back fence not far, but the trees cast deep shadows that felt alive. We have to move faster, Jason urged, glancing back over his shoulder. We might not be alone. That's when I saw a flicker of motion in the darkness. A figure, almost blending into the surroundings, watching us from the edge of the trees. My blood ran cold. Jason, someone's out there. Don't stop. Keep going. He yelled, pulling me further along the path, forcing me onward despite the dread pooling in my stomach. With every step, I could hear the unseen presence shifting behind us. As we reached the far end, Jason pulled me towards an old rusty door set into the ground, an entrance to the cellar I hadn't known existed. In here. He commanded. We slipped inside just as the unmistakable sound of footsteps broke the silence. The door creaked as Jason swung it shut, plunging us into darkness. I felt Jason's hand grip my arm tightly, the air heavy with unspoken fear. "What are we doing?" I whispered, trying to adjust my eyes to the dark void that surrounded us. A long pause followed, and then, in the chilling stillness, he replied, "We need to find the rest before they do. They won't stop until they've got all of us." That's when I heard a low growl, a sound that sent icy tendrils of fear through my spine. We were not alone in this darkness. I strained to hear over the growl, my heart racing in the thick darkness. The sound was deep and resonant, echoing through the cellar like an ominous warning. "What is that?" I whispered, barely able to keep my voice steady. Jason's grip tightened around my arm. "I don't know, but we can't stay here." He started feeling along the wall, searching for something. My pulse pounded in my ears as the creature shifted somewhere in the shadows. Just when I thought the growling might be a figment of my imagination, it came again, closer this time. "We have to find a way out," I urged, my voice a shaky whisper. I pictured the growl morphing into a roar, something lunging toward us in the darkness. Then Jason paused, his hand catching on something metallic. "There has to be a way to communicate," he said urgently, pulling out an old flashlight. It flickered to life with a dull, faint beam. As the light spread, it illuminated the damp walls of the cellar, revealing piles of discarded items, old crates, broken chairs, and what made my stomach drop, an array of strange tools scattered about. "What are all these?" I asked, dread filling my voice. "I don't know, but they look like they could be useful," he replied, shaking the flashlight to get it to glow brighter. As he did, the light fell across something in the corner, a large wooden table, stained and worn, with markings etched into the surface that I could barely make out. "We need to move slowly," Jason whispered. The growling continued, now punctuated with soft scratching sounds. My mind raced with possibilities, each worse than the last. I took a quick glance around, my breath hitching when I noticed a dark shape moving just outside the range of our light. "We can't stick around to find out what that is," Jason urged, his eyes darting back and forth. "We have to find another exit." I nodded, backing away from the figure in the corner, but my foot caught on something heavy, and I went tumbling to the ground. The flashlight slipped from Jason's hands, rolling across the dusty floor. I reached for it, feeling panic threaten to consume me. Then, the growl turned into a low, deep rumble, reverberating in my bones. I scrambled for the flashlight just as everything went pitch black. "Get up!" Jason shouted. Panic surged through me. I could barely see my hand in front of my face, let alone anything lurking nearby. I struggled to find my bearings. That's when I felt something brush against my leg, a cool, scaly texture that froze me in place. My breath caught in the back of my throat. "Jason!" I screamed, and I felt his hand find mine, pulling me back up. "We need to go. Now." He tugged me toward what had to be a doorway at the far end of the cellar, still shrouded in darkness. I didn't think twice. We barreled forward, not stopping until we slammed into something solid. "Find the latch!" Jason yelled. My fingers fumbled over the wood, trembling as time felt suspended around us, the growling intensifying. We were running out of time. Before I could find the latch, a sudden flash of light erupted behind us, illuminating the creature watching from the shadows. I froze, terror pouring over me like ice water. Jason pushed harder against the door. "Please, please," his voice cracked. And then it gave way. As the door swung open, we plunged into the unknown just as a piercing shriek echoed through the cellar, marking the beginning of the hunt. The night air felt like a breath of fresh life as we stumbled out into the darkened alley, the moon casting faint silver patches across the pavement. I caught my breath, heart pounding as the echoes of the creature's growl and the haunting shadows from the cellar faded behind us. We had escaped at least for the moment. But the question loomed over us like a dark cloud: what had we just unleashed? Jason pulled me down the alley, glancing back nervously. We need to keep moving. It might know we're out. His voice was laced with urgency, his expression marred by panic. I nodded, instinctively falling in step beside him, but my mind spun with what we had found. Why is this happening? What does that thing want? I breathed between gasps, trying to gather my thoughts. It wants the metal, he replied, looking around as if expecting the shadows to stretch and swallow us whole. We can't let it find us, or we're as good as dead. I instinctively clutched the metal object still wrapped in my palm, feeling its cool weight anchoring me in a reality that was rapidly slipping away. I frowned. But you said I had to find the rest. What does that mean? I don't know, Jason admitted, his fear overshadowing any clarity in his eyes. But whatever we just encountered in there, it's tied to the metal. I was hoping we could get to the basement and find the answers, but now he trailed off, shivering as if the air around us had thickened with dread. We darted through the winding streets, skirting past flickering lampposts that cast ghostly shadows ahead of us. I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were watching, creeping along the edges of our movement. Snapshots of the figure that had chased us, of the unknown depths we had barely escaped, haunted my thoughts. The street was empty, too quiet. My instinct was to bolt, dive back into the safety of my apartment, but the pull was stronger now. Haunting whispers enveloped my resolve. I needed answers, but the stakes felt terrifyingly high. Where to now? I asked, my voice trembling in the stillness. There might be people, those who have dealt with this before, Jason replied, his voice hardening. We need to find them. They can help us. Help? And how do we know they're not part of what we've just faced? You think they might know about the metal? I pressed, doubt creeping in. The shadows clung tighter, a reminder of the danger we were running from. Jason hesitated, looking lost for a moment. There's no guarantee, but if we don't try, we might not survive the night. As we rounded a corner, the distant hum of a crowd reached our ears, music pulsing, laughter bubbling. I caught Jason's eye, a flicker of cautious hope passing between us. We hurried toward the source of life, entering a bustling bar that felt like a haven from the chaos outside. The noise enveloped us, yet I felt unease cling to me, making the laughter feel distant. We wove through the crowd, scanning faces but finding no signs of familiarity. Gathering his courage, Jason approached a bartender, making small talk while I paced nervously behind him. My mind spiraled in circles, half listening as Jason tried to explain our strange situation, when suddenly, I felt a cool presence at my shoulder. Looking for answers? A voice broke through my frantic thoughts, smoky and smooth. I turned to face a woman with piercing green eyes, her raven hair cascading down her shoulders. A strange sense of familiarity flickered, as if I had met her in a half-remembered dream. Who are you? I demanded, too jangled to muster anything polite. She smiled, enigmatic and aware. Someone who has kept an eye on the metal, among other things. You've just stepped into something bigger than you realize. I felt its presence when you picked it up. Jason moved to stand beside me, his posture tense. You know about the creature? I'd know by its scent anywhere, she replied, leaning closer as if the shadows harbored too many ears. What you've uncovered may not just link to death, it may play into a cycle none of you can comprehend. It wants to consume, to gather those pieces you hold. I felt the weight of the metal in my pocket grow heavier. Gather what pieces? I was desperate to understand, knowing my voice wavered between curiosity and fear. Not just the metal, but souls. It feeds on the lonely, abandoned, turns them into a dark army. Her eyes darkened, holding layers of profound sorrow. But you're running out of time. The more you uncover, the more dangerous it gets. The walls felt as if they were closing in, the laughter around us growing hollow as the truth echoed in my mind. I thought of the bodies, the bruising, the sense of loss tied to every investigation I'd conducted. What do we do? Jason asked, his voice steadying despite the turmoil swirling around us. Follow me. We can locate the rest, but you'll need to trust me, she replied, her voice unyielding, yet something playful flickered in her eyes. There's a price, but every step you take pulls you deeper into the game. We exchanged glances, uncertainty mirrored in our expressions. Every instinct warned me to run, to escape this situation before it consumed us both. Yet, a dark fascination began to creep in. What frightened me most was the pull I felt toward the darkness, the mystery beckoning with silent, hollowing whispers. Before I could process it any further, she turned, leading us toward the back room that promised answers. Questions bubbled in the depths of my mind, a longing for understanding beating against the walls of my growing dread. But as we stepped into that second dimly lit space, reality shifted, and I could never quite tell what would wait for us on the other side. Each move took us farther into the unknown. And as the door closed behind us, the words echoed mind heavy with haunting urgency. Find the rest. Time is running out. And just like that, a fateful choice loomed ahead, with darkness waiting patiently to carve out its uncertain path.